Hi and welcome to the channel. This is all going to be about Adobe and what you can do about it. So Adobe's changed their terms of service and articles in Business Today and all this other stuff. Just prompting people to look at it and go, what's going on? And I look at it from the perspective of training people up to move into the creative media industry. In that, professionally, what's going on here? Because the critical point, as stated here, Adobe's getting a worldwide royalty-free license to reproduce, display, distribute, etc., stuff that you produce. Because it's shared up to the Adobe Cloud and that sort of stuff, they can get access to it if it's not on their computer. And I'll get back to that in just a sec. But basically, as a creative professional, you can sign non-disclosure agreements or NDAs to basically limit what you're allowed to share about the stuff you're working on. It's good for the companies, it's good for the creative, everybody gets involved in that sort of stuff. And Adobe's kind of taking steps to break that agreement, which is interesting. So, the whole reason behind them doing it is to train their AI and that sort of stuff. To touch base back on the Adobe Cloud stuff, one of the things I noticed in saving files within the last couple of years was that it would default to save to the cloud. And then that option got, when I wanted to save it on my computer, it got harder to find that option. So they're trying to subtly pushing this angle of saving to the cloud. And so this way, get a bunch of users into a certain set of habits and that sort of stuff. By doing that, they're kind of funneling people into that without explicitly being really open about it, which the important thing is, look, what do we do about it? Because Adobe's got what it wants to do, and we need to look into what we as creatives should be doing with this sort of stuff. There are countless articles that are popping up at the moment about alternatives to the Adobe stuff. And I'm just going to talk about the ones that, and you can find these articles, I'll put them in links in the description. I'm just going to talk about the ones I've actually used, because I think talking about a whole list is kind of irrelevant in a lot of cases, but here we go. In researching this list, I did actually find one thing that I'm going to have to investigate further, which is Lightspark. It's a Flash player, and because Flash died off technically a couple of years ago, although Adobe changed it into Adobe Animate, it looks like a way of playing the old Flash stuff. So if I can find some old Flash games out there, maybe that's good. It's one of the things I used to teach a while back. So going through the Adobe product and what can we switch to. So with Adobe Photoshop, I have used GIMP. I can use it, but I find it frustrating. I've used Krita. That's great for the painterly drawery kind of stuff, especially if you've got a graphics tablet. And I also use Affinity Photo, and I'm good for photo bashing and that sort of basic photo editing. Adobe Lightroom is another one they use to sort of prepare photos before you start editing them to get the best out of them. And Darktable is a free and open source equivalent to that. By the way, I'll be putting all links in the description. Then, of course, we've got Adobe Illustrator. What can we replace it with? Well, in the free and open source front, we have Inkscape, and in the paid front, I've used Affinity Designer. Now, in terms of Premiere Pro and After Effects, one of Adobe's combinations, I switched to DaVinci Resolve a couple of years ago now. You can see tutorials on the channel, and I found it to be a better tool, so I'm quite happy with that choice. In terms of some of the special effects, you can use the Fusion tab out of Resolve, or conversely, you can also use Blender. I'm a bit of a 3D nerd, so that's why I'm dropping that in there. 2D animation becomes a bit of a challenge because when I looked through it, I did experiment with Pencil 2D and a bunch of others almost a decade ago now. And there was just nothing that could really match what you could do in terms of 2D animation with Adobe Animate. And if you have disagreements, by all means, share them in the comments, because I would like to know what could compete with it. The one I've found that's closest for me is Blender's Grease Pencil. Anyhow, moving into PDF creation, we've got InDesign. The competitors for that are the open source Scribulus, which I've dabbled with a little bit, and I've done one or two minor projects in Affinity Publisher, which is one of the reasons why I bought the Affinity package in the first place. Then in terms of dealing with Acrobats and PDF files, there's a whole bunch of free viewing tools online these days that you can get to view it, and most web browsers have got them built in. But in terms of creating them, PDF 24 Creator, I've used their online stuff, and I've downloaded the desktop version to play with. There is plenty of options, and by all means, I know other people out there will have their own choices and that sort of stuff, but really, that's just my take on it. Oh, and one last thing, stock photos or stock images, video, audio, etc., etc., etc. Adobe has a huge range of stock. It's got a large stock library, but there are alternatives. Unsplash that I've used for photos. I know there's a countless others, and I'll put all the ones I know of in the description for this thing. If you know of more, please let me know, because I'm always looking for good stuff in this regard. Anyhow, that's all I've got time for at this moment. Make the best of your day, and I will see you next time.